returning to a place called Alcaf Mansion. Not far from here. It's in a area of ridges, hills. It's called the Southern Ridges. This is Alexander Road that we're coming into. Lower Delta Road just on the left. I think I go pretty much next left. So on a lane. This area was important in the run-up to World War II. Just keeping an eye out for the road that I need. It's a small turning. Henderson Road. This cuts through a gap in the southern ranges. There's a whole series of these ridges. They're not exactly mountains, a few hundred feet high. They're beautiful to walk. There's a walking area now that takes you from one to the other. Some people actually cycle it. You can see that it's got that sort of green look about it. Leafy. A lot of technical colleges and institutions around here, residential of course. But not that many decades ago it was pretty overgrown, jungly. Now, I think I'm going the right way. I have to turn right somewhere down here and into the parkland, Alcaf Mansion. I'll tell you more about that. So it's a beautiful mansion, as you'll see. I think a bit further on. Not really sure. I think I have to go past the freeway first. And built, I think, in the early 1900s, or certainly before World War II. And he was a wealthy Arab and interesting character. I'll put his full name up on the screen. It's Depot Road. That was an area where the British had a lot of barracks and munitions centres. This area was an area of a key battle with the Japanese. This park is Telok Blangah Park, which I think could be in there, yes. Not sure. Yes, I think I have to do a U-turn and go up there. That's a fine bridge, the Henderson Waves. You can walk along there and it connects one ridge to another. Here we go. Very green. Not quite jungle anymore, but you get a bit of a picture. Oh, I wonder if there's any tigers around here. I doubt it. But you never know. Some of the viewers were asking about a thing that I put out there about, then maybe they're planning to reintroduce tigers into the wild in Singapore, and some people sort of kind of believed it. I say probably not, or at least not until everybody has been vaccinated against tiger bite. Whilst we've been vaccinated against corona to a very high level, apart from a small caucus who don't want to, the tiger bite vaccination program has yet to kick off. Everybody is here. Car park 2. Now, do they have bike parks? Yes, there. Well, here we are. Enough room for me to squeeze in. Pretty, yeah? Popular time of day, Saturday morning. Beautiful. Anyway, we'll go and have a look at the mansion and get a coffee. Not exactly alpine around here, but quite nice. Got another camera on board there. Hopefully not too much ugliness. This is Kent Ridge. We're cutting through it on the way to the coastal road, the western coast area. Nice. Pity there's not more roads like this in Singapore. Kent Ridge, I presume named after Kent, the eponymous Kent of southern England, and coronavirus variety, the Kent variant. I don't know, it's politely called something else now to not offend anyone from Kent. Sensitive souls. I know some people from Kent. Nice people, even though they're south of the river. And Surrey, for that matter. I know another fellow from Croydon. Can't all be perfect. Kent Ridge Park, I must go up there sometime. He wrote a book purporting that Jesus came from Croydon. I don't think he was particularly serious. We'd be in trouble if he did. He lacks all credibility, my friend, because he supports Crystal Palace. Shame. Alcaf Mansion was lovely. Mr. Alcaf was an interesting gentleman, as I mentioned. Bit of a philanthropist, wealthy, Arab, but he spent a lot of his time and effort on trying to bring social harmony to Singapore. He drew together the Muslim communities of the Malays and other Arab communities, and had social events at his lovely house, and promoted multiracialism. And, you know, no, you think about that, that's in the 1920s. Yeah, the British historians thought that the only glue holding together Singapore across the racial divides was money. That's clearly not the case. I mean, I ride with a couple of Harley groups, and we cover multitudes of nations from our origins, even Canadians. More of that later. Beautiful morning. But Alcaf allowed all sorts of people to hold events at his beautiful establishment. Just watching out for men in lycra on their bikes. That's why I'm going around slower than I would normally. It's my excuse. There's a lot of cyclists who hang around here. Yeah, so the Chinese socialites gathered at his place, and he did a lot to promote harmony. It's a good lesson for the day. You don't have to be an asshole if you're wealthy. Car park C, we're just going to go out here. I can only pull up outside. This is Bukit Chandu. There's a bungalow there, and I'll explain a bit more. This is the story of the Malaya Regiment, and well, it's closed. Anyway, it's closed. This hill was quite important in the when the Japanese landed on the island in the northwest. The Malay Regiment was tasked with defending some of these positions along this ridge line. The Japanese moved up from the west and overran the British lines on the road below us. Behind us, you can't really see it here, but behind is basically where the British had a lot of their munitions. Alexandra Hospital, military barracks. So not a good idea to lose that. And this particular point was held for a few days. This is 12th to 15th of February 1942 by Company C of the Malay Regiment. Malay Regiment here in this area was about 1,400 men at arms, but the Japanese main thrust the attack along this area in what was called the Battle of Pasir Panjang numbered 13 or 14,000, I think, so overwhelmed. And C Company, the platoon here was led by a Malay second lieutenant, Adnan bin Saidi, and fine young man. He'd actually attended the King's coronation in London representing the Malaya Regiment, and their motto is to the end, and he and about 40 of his men here, British officers, 3 of them being killed. He mounted a last stand here and said to his men that he's going to fight to the end, and they did. And the Japanese launched banzai attacks against this position here, and they defended until they basically ran out of munitions, and then bayonet charged the Japanese. Very brave, of course, sacrificial, ultimately to no particular sort of purpose, because 2 or 3 days later the British surrendered. Humility in that defeat, but to his credit, General Arthur Percival mentioned the Malaya Regiment in dispatches, and in particular Adnan and his men, for their sacrifices. You know, they weren't going to give up. Those that weren't killed at this spot were not well treated by the Japanese when they were taken prisoner, including Adnan, and they beat him and tortured him, and then eventually hung him up from a tree. And not a very ceremonious ending. A number of his brothers at arms refused to take off their Malaya Regiment uniforms, and of course they perished as well. I think he's mentioned in school books, rightly so. I don't know if he's been honoured more widely than that. He should be, for sure. You know, futility of war, of course, but when push comes to shove, you stand up and be counted, I guess. What matters, honour, I guess, mattered a lot to him and his men. They're interred at Kranji Cemetery. I must go up there and pay homage. Part of Singapore's past, but time to move on, remember and honour, but think about Singapore as the modern Singapore that these guys helped preserve against what at the time was terrible tyranny. Anyway, moving along. Actually, the last surviving member of that regiment, I believe, passed away earlier this year, and I will put his name up in honour and respect. Passed away in Malaysia, and at a ripe old age of 100, so you know, there were some survivors, not many. Ironically, he passed away from complications due to COVID. Sad, but some of his comrades were not blessed with longevity. Anyway, we'll head up to one of the neighbouring parks near here, above Holt Park, and we'll do a little bit of a dance for one of my Canadian friends who loves dancing. I think the Canadians are natural dancers, possibly. And I've stopped blaming his countrymen for the extermination of tigers in Singapore. It's not true that Canadians hunt everything on 4 legs. In my experience, they prefer things on 2 legs. But that's another story. Time for a coffee.